and go from there. So welcome to the 25th Annual Capital Conference, the virtual edition. It's our goal that each session is about an hour in length. However, we may go a little longer or a little shorter. My name is David Stevens. I'm the Director of Academics for UIL. We have Glenda Munoz on with us today. Many of you, you'll get to see her face here. You often hear just her email ding in your box. So thanks for joining us, Glenda. And we are very happy to have a session today about recruiting students and coaches to your academic program. Our presenter is Robert Blain. He's from Carver High School. He has a unique situation where he's in a large conference school, but he has a small student body to draw from. So not only will he be able to speak to those of you in larger programs, but also those of you in smaller schools and the challenges you face of recruiting and students and coaches as well. So Robert, thank you for being willing to share your information with us today and presenting this information to our attendees at this year's Capital Conference.
Thank you, David. All right, well, first, welcome everybody. I was a little taken aback that David asked me to present, but you know, I like to say that, and I actually put it in here, a smart man has all the answers, a wise man has all the questions. So I want this to be a conversation because I definitely don't have all the answers. I definitely don't have all the questions either, but at least I have a few. I had a quick CV on myself because I hate talking about myself. I am from Beaumont, did UIL academics, both in middle school and high school. Did not think when I was in high school or college, oh yeah, I'll you know, graduate, get my cert and start teaching high school or middle school. I thought I was going to take over the world, one company at a time, as I used to say. Well, I ended up realizing that corporate wasn't for me, so I got into education. And I was actually just telling Dr. Stevens a few minutes ago, I had the opportunity to learn from some great coaches. Our UIL coordinator for years was someone who ended up in the TSCA Hall of Fame in K. McGill. Also I used to be at Westfield originally in Spring ISD. And Paul Stroud, who's you know a legend as well, was there until he decided, I believe he helped open Seven Lakes. You know, I got great tutelage even when they weren't trying to teach me and coach me. But then I finally got to get started coaching, took over as academic coordinator in 2016 because Ms. McGill retired, and have gotten, since I started coaching, multiple state qualifiers. At this point, Glenda and David are like, what just happened? Because we did turn it over the slide gap. I really didn't want to talk about myself much. So I put a timer on that one. So moving on, now that that's over, we'll get to start talking about what it is. Whether you're in a large school like I used to be at, a small school like I'm currently at. My school, I think our literal UIL number is, or our ADA number is 322, but yet we compete on the 6A level because every other school in my district is a 6A school that competes in UIL. And our one-act play is an awesome one-act play, and they enjoy competing on the 6A level, so we all compete 6A. But it's all about several things. Getting committed coaches, getting committed students, which I see as easier than the coaches, stretching your dollar, getting campus buy-in, and remembering that your most valuable resource is the human resource. You know, money can be found. It's a lot harder to find the coaches to coach and sponsor and the students to be on the teams. And so that's what most of this is going to be about. I will talk about stretching the dollar since you know the official title included limited resources. I'll talk about that too. But most of this is going to be about getting the sponsors and getting the kids. So full disclosure, I did crowdsource some information for this because, like I said, I don't have I'm not a smart man. I don't have all the answers. I'm not a wise man. I have a lot of questions, but I don't have all the questions. Plus, those of you that know me know that I'm very wordy, waiting for Erica Weber to laugh at me for that one. But there will be some stuff that I got information from others on, and I give them credit that I didn't get it from myself. So let's talk. Starts with the people. Understand what your campus is, though. Are you a big school or you're a small school? As Dr. Wilson said in his presentation on Tuesday, in general, yes, the scores on the 5A, 6A level will usually be better than the 1A to 4A level, but that's because of sheer numbers. But then when you look at some events and some coaches, it doesn't matter what level you're on. If you're, the Sabine Path Social Studies team, you're rocking and rolling every year with scores that are competitive with the 5A and 6A teams. But smaller schools just mean smaller pools. It doesn't mean lesser kids. Case in point. I will make sports references. Jamaica has fewer people than Harris County. But if you're going to put money on a track team to medal at the Olympics, and you're told you can't bet on the US, your first bet's going to be Jamaica, because they created a culture of that. And that's part of what this will be about, how to start creating a culture or continue a culture at your school. If you have a successful program already, success breeds success, and that's great. But at the larger schools, the challenge is often more programs to compete with for attention. That you have a Future Teachers of America. You have a Welcome in Melanie. You have, a lot of programs that a 1A, 2A, 3A school may not have a sponsor for. Well, it just creates different challenges. Like I said, I'm at a 6A school that has an official UIL number of 322. So I have one of the more, even more unique than most situations, but I've been at a big school and I've been at a small school. And it's victories are victories. The kids feel just as accomplished if they make it to region and they only beat 3 people at district, or if they beat 50 people at district. They feel just as awesome showing up at their region site. So let's start with the first hurdle, which is talking with the decision makers. I've been working with a couple of districts about, trying to help them find ways to convince admin to create stipends. Being able to tell someone, hey, you're going to get an extra contract day, or you're going to get an extra 200, 500, whatever it is to coach, or you're going to get paid an hourly rate for coaching. That's a great thing to be able to do. But we also know how tight budgets are when we're seeing all our neighboring districts getting 1.5% and 2% raises. We know that begging for, a pool of $6,000 may not be an option. Well, but what is an option? How many of your schools actually have a stipend for the coaches? You can go ahead and please unmute and pipe up with that.
Ours does.
Mine does not.
Mine does.
Good.
Mine does not.
My
Sometimes.
favorite was
Was that you, Melanie, saying something? It kind of got muffled.
Sorry, I said sometimes. Some
Okay.
years we do and some years we don't. It just depends on how much money we have.
We do in Abilene.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad that many of y'all do have stipends.
Right.
But I was, in my district, the stipend is $200 per event. To which I'm begging our PPA director, who's over UIL academics, to find a way to make it where it's, at least it's an extra contract day for the coaches, because you are giving up at least that Saturday of district. We don't have the culture, and I've only been in Aldine for 2 years. We don't have the culture of expecting the coaches to go to invitationals or even doing online invitationals. But it's fun. But it's a mix. See. And yeah, I know it's, for some people it varies by event, where the speech coach may get something because they do several events, but then other coaches may not. But I'm also going to hit on a way to get some money for your program in it that doesn't have to go through the formal stipend process or a formal budgeting. That I do get to hit on that. All right, so admin's got their focus on things like they don't want unwanted attention because of test scores. They want positive publicity, and they always have to keep within the budget. So one of the things that I thought of in talking to people was, and in stealing some ideas from other presentations, including Dr. Stevens' presentation from Monday, which I hope all of y'all got to attend. It's the best session at Capitol Conference. I'm not kissing up to him, I swear. It really is the best session. But sell admin on things like the TEACS connections. Because if you tell them, hey, these kids are already going to pass STAR, so they don't need STAR remediation, but we can work with them on something that'll help them get themselves ready to be a master's on STAR, as opposed to just getting a score that's good enough that we know that we don't have to worry about that. Thank you for chiming in with that one, Dawn. Yeah, coordinator, but not coaches. And that's sometimes frustrating because those coaches put in a lot of hours. Thank you for mentioning that. And thank you, Katie, for that comment about you can't expect them to go to invitationals if they're not being paid to do it. And yeah, I get that. When I was at Westfield, we did the online invitationals because not all of our coaches were as committed, but I could at least get them to commit to giving the kids the test, even if I had to grade it myself. Get your kids the test, have them drop it off with me. I'll put in the scores. But TEACS connections, positive local media coverage, which, as has been mentioned before, that may mean that you have to write the article anyway. But remember, you're writing the announcement in the morning for the morning announcements anyway. It's going to be a carbon copy of what ends up being mentioned on the school's website or the newspaper if you have one. Clean it up and send it to the city or county newspaper. They may run it verbatim. If you put your phone number on it, they may call with one question and then run it exactly as you wrote it. It's a great opportunity to get local media coverage. So that when somebody Googles your district or your high school, it pops up with a good news story, not a bad news story, or a news story that doesn't involve sports. Because we know that football, we're in Texas, football is going to get the attention because half the town shows up at the games. Half the town doesn't show up for district UIL or even a pep rally for kids going to state. And again, if you missed Dr. Stevens' presentation, go back and watch it. All right, so let's get some coaches. My most successful time to recruit for coaches is during in-service. Because to be honest, there's, you're going to have in most districts, in most schools, you're going to have a new teacher or two. They want a niche. And working with the math and science teams or working with the lit crit team, that could be their niche. whether you're in especially if you're in a big district where a lot of things get lost in the shuffle. We didn't get to have it last year, but face-to-face time is wonderful. Being able to see, oh, well, there's that new English teacher. Okay, well, we haven't fielded a lit crit team in 5 years. Let's see if they're willing to do it. I'm going to be honest. While making this, I recruited a coach or a sponsor because she'd been teaching animation for a couple of years. We aren't entering the animation part of the film competition. We may get to this year because she just didn't know about it. And that's my job as coordinator to let her know. But nobody jumps for joy at in-service, but getting somebody excited that you sought them out might get them just as enough excited that they feel like, yeah, I can do that. Sure. Oh, I only have to I probably only have to stick around for till 4 o'clock once a week. I can do that. Oh, yes, and as Erica said, department chairs can spread the word. Whether it's a department chair, a skills specialist, an IS, whoever is the one that can get those coaches or get those teachers. It's a great way to do it. Nice drop in, Glenda. I like that. Drop in the recordings. Very nice. Thank you. So, but just like freshmen are looking for a niche, new teachers are looking for a niche. When I took over the social studies team from a coach that had gotten individuals and teams to state when I was at Westfield, he goes to Klein Collins and they're sitting in a department meeting. He's running late because he was also dealing with his athletics coaching responsibilities. Like, well, who's going to coach social studies? He walks in, oh yeah, you coached it. And he had his first 4 years, he had the second place person at district all 4 years. One of them doing it their freshman year. All right, well, let's get some students. As I said, for me, it's easier to find committed students than coaches. Do y'all feel like that's the case? Or you can message or unmute, feel free to unmute at any time. I'm a talker. I like to shut up. Which do y'all find is harder? Getting the coaches or getting the students?
Getting coaches.
Coaches for sure.
Coaches for sure.
Yeah,
Well, for those of you
coaches.
new to the job, you're hearing the constant refrain. It's more often than not, it's the coaches that are harder to get.
Well, when you've only got one English teacher and she's already overloaded, they're not real willing to
That is true.
take on another task.
That is true. And sometimes, the first thing that they talked about me sponsoring, even though I'm a social studies teacher, they asked me if I'd take over the math and science, the math team. There may be, at the smaller school, you obviously have, and I'll hit on that in a second, Don. Thank you for mentioning that. When it, doesn't have to be somebody in that department. It could be, the sped co-teacher. Yeah, when you're at a 1A school, it's tough, and sometimes, and without that culture of, thank you, Denise. Without a culture of that smart is cool, and sometimes you have to mention how big the scholarships are through TILF for the state qualifiers. No matter what the school is, we're in Texas, sports, oops, there we go. Motion sensitive lights. Sports get the attention sports seem cooler because they're more visible. But you have to find a way to make being on the self-proclaimed nerd squad cool. And we deal with teenagers. We know what the mentality of a teenager is, right? You have to make your own visibility. Career prep teacher is the spelling coach. I like that. And it is, you're so right, a mental break. You're getting to talk about something other than your content area. Maybe just what the kids want. When I was in high school, I was the smart kid. I didn't make it to state, but for me, my parents taught me that smart was the cool thing, but I was lucky that way. That my mom was a nerd. My parents both ingrained in me, nerds rule the world. But, the smart kids have a lot going on. We know this. Because if they're, top 10 in their class, they're being pulled into this group and that group, and they may be a student council officer, and it's really hard to grab them figuratively, not physically. I like that. Using the nurse as the science coach. So, but yeah, finding the coaches wherever you can find them. Brandy, what district are you in? Frankston, okay. Yeah, been through Frankston many a time. Got family in Jacksonville and Bullard, near Pierce's Chapel on Lake Jacksonville. Been through Frankston gajillion times. Nice town. Love that town. But find coaches wherever you can find them. Pulling in retirees, I love that. Especially if they're looking for a way to stay involved. And maybe get paid a few bucks, as an hourly rate to do something that helps out their TRS, because I have way too many TRS retiree friends that tell me about how little it's increased since they retired. Freshman orientation is a great opportunity. You're so right. And we finally get to do in-person stuff like that again this year. But you can bet that even if I didn't have to be on my campus for freshman orientation, I'm going to be recruiting students for my social studies team and for all the teams if I can get the time to do so. Talking to the middle school sponsors. And I'm going to talk about another way to get those kids coming out of middle school in just a moment. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. But finding a way to get them early, because if you get them early, they don't have 15 things going on. They're not student body vice president during their freshman year. And yes, individual conversations are the best. It feels so long since we got to talk to students face to face. And that's with having kids in front of us last year. It didn't feel like we ever got to really have those talks. All right, so some things that you can do to get them. I truly believe they are kids. If you feed them, they will come. I put in there having an ice cream party, maybe even getting the principal to pay for a couple of gallons of Bluebell and some Hershey's syrup. Whether it's chips and sodas, cookies, give them something to entice them to, that's an enticement once they get there. Because we know that promising them Oreos is not going to get 100 kids to show up. But when they hear that there's going to be something there, yeah. But things to talk up. Talk about the travel. In my district, in my UIL district, it's just I'll come back to that in a second though. Our UIL district is just our ISD and Spring ISD. So yes, I'm competing against my old employer. But, so it's not that much travel, but then getting to go to region, that is travel because we always go to Baylor. And spending a night in Waco is a big deal. And I talked to our PVA director about if this is going to be an enticement to get to travel, we can't stick kids on yellow dogs. We need to get a motor coach, 2 motor coaches, excuse them from class all day Friday. That way, if they have, pre-cal at 4th period or AP stats at 5th period, they can go to that 1st period if the teacher has that class and still get to travel. If that's an option for some people, they only have 1 section of some of those classes. Earning a letter jacket. That's one that I did not mention. Thank you for bringing that up, Paula. So I'm reading your comment, Melanie. How do you get students after they have committed to participate? Okay, that's a good question. How do you get them committed to participate because of everything else? Well, it's hopefully this year will be easier than last year was. Last year, I had 5 people on my social studies team alone that ghosted me. They just stopped returning my emails and they were virtual students. So it's not like I could go visit their class because they were never on campus, except when they'd find a way to come up for 1-act play. But, that's a difficult one. Does anyone have any suggestions so that I'm not having to hear my voice the whole time? Getting kids that have already committed to jump in?
I feel like I get half of my student body to commit the first week of school, but then actually participating, I might have 10 students actually going to district by the time it gets to, March of the next year, because there are so many different things. We only have a student body of, I'm like you, I'm in an early college high school. I have a student body of like 350. So there are so many things that they're involved in, and
I've got a couple slides about how to break through that. And
I've tried creating contracts. I've tried, getting through to their parents about it. I've talked to them about the fact that they can get a scholarship, the TILF stuff.
I understand. And that's part of the reason why I want this to be a conversation, because A, I don't have all the answers, and B, there's a lot of smart people in this. Any suggestions? Because having a contract is all fine and dandy, but then you can't do anything to them if they break it. You can't exactly. And one of the things that I will say that has worked for me is working admin to create that period where, like, we have an enrichment period. We have the block schedule, and then 3rd period, right before we start lunch, is a 45-minute period that there's no how to put this? There are no core classes that period. Everybody's in some kind of enrichment, whether it's grad prep, study skills, STAR prep. They're in something that period. Talking to admin about, hey, can I get, you said that 10 kids that stick around by the time district rolls around. If they're coming back, give them that, your version of a 3rd period if you have one. And at an early college, high school, I'm guessing there's an activity period of some sort. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that get those kids and others that they think would be good, get them in that period and turn in 50 names. And then, if you end up getting 20 of them, great. But offer to let it be a dump for all the smart kids, because 50 kids in that period means that every other teacher has like 12. And at my campus, that's not even being hyperbolic. If one teacher did have a 50-person period, everybody else would have less than 20. I agree with what Katie said. Don't necessarily call it a contract, because yeah, even 18-year-olds, public school students in Texas, it's not like if they violated the contract, you could do anything to them. But yeah, an agreement, and make, I know it's a taboo word to say, though it shows up in the Jeopardy tryout test right now. Give them a quid pro quo. Give them some kind of promise of something other than, in addition to, you know, hey, you make state, you get a letter jacket. And we make that promise. If you make it that anyone that makes state gets a letter jacket. Well, our honor graduates get academics letter jackets already. So that isn't as much of a carrot. But for a freshman to be showing up at that first, I'm not going to say cool front because I'm in Southeast Texas, but first not hot, not warm front, but they have a letter jacket, nobody else does. That's a big thing. Because we don't have sports. So the only things you're getting letter jackets for at my school are, you know, all region choir, being in one act play, making the cut for theater or debate. We don't have a whole bunch of letter jackets walking around unless you're a junior or a senior. So I can make that more of a carrot than a school that has, you know, 150 sophomores showing up because they were running cross country as a freshman, or, you know, whatever they were doing as a freshman or a first semester sophomore, that they've already got a letter jacket. But that's a knowing your campus thing. Speaking of that, talk to the freshman teachers if you're not one of them. Find out who's doing well in September. And then follow up at the end of the year. So who else was kind of shining out to you to get recruits for the next year? That was the first thing that I did the last week of school once we had finals done, was I emailed those teachers and said, hey, who were your dynamos? Because I want to give them those special invitations. I like that, you know, getting that y'all are getting the Letterman process going again. I like that. But I'm already working on these special invitations for my recruiting thing next year. And putting that your freshman teachers nominated you, it makes the smart kids feel special. Even more special than, you know, being ranked number 7 in their class or number 2 in their class does. And I don't need to talk about, you know, the value of upperclassmen. We know they're valuable. That stinks that nobody responded. Now that we, you know, get to see each other face to face, you know, drop by their room during the service and say, like, who were some of your great kids? You know, because it's harder for them to not respond when you're actually sitting on that desk 12 feet from them. And, you know, just like it's easier to get kids to commit when you're talking to them face to face, it's easier to get an answer from teachers when you're face to face with them, because they can't, it's harder to ignore you. I'm a big guy. It's really hard to ignore me. But y'all aren't my size, but it's still hard to ignore y'all. As y'all start laughing at me, good. All right, so let's move forward. All right, so success breeds success. You know, the best way to build a program is have the kids, find a way for the kids to start being envious of each other. you know, at Westfield, the only really, we had two decently successful programs outside of speech and debate. We had a good social studies team, and we had a good accounting team. And the accounting person that made state was actually the alternate on the social studies team because she was going to be there anyway, and she had been practicing with them, and she knew she'd make state because she's just that kind of student. But you know, you won't go from 0 to Lindale in a year. You know, Lindale knocked it out of the park this year. Cy Woods knocked it out of the park. One of the PSJAs, I can't remember which one, knocked it out of the park this year in one state over, the traditional power of Highland Park and other great schools on the 5A level. It would be great if you could go from nothing to that in a year, but find a couple of events, even if it's just the one that you coach or the ones you coach, get them to win district. And then make a big deal between district and region about, oh yeah, that's right. Janice isn't going to be here next 2 Fridays from now because she's going to region with me. I keep forgetting that. Janice, congratulations again. And start making it where the kids are envious that those kids get to miss class. Because, and I'm drawing a blank on who had this version of this version of the talk a couple years ago, but she talked about that they have a huge pep rally at their school. That the fire department, gets the water hoses, and they're shooting them over the bus as the bus gets the police escort out of the county. Like, that's great. And hopefully all your programs will be at that in a couple of years where at least a few kids will get to go to state and you can have the big to-do. But start by finding successes and then have those breed success. Have those students that are in the program say, hey, I'm also good at math, I'll do math too. Or spelling sure seems easy, I could do that. Find ways to grow it a little bit by bit. Have those kids start thinking, man, I'm good at math. Is there a math competition? Yes, there is. Use in-house sources. Make sure you make morning announcements. Put it in the campus newspaper every time you have a success. As Dr. Stevens will always say, have the announcement that the spelling team placed 6th at the Idalou High School Invitational. They don't know that there were only 6 schools there, but they placed 6th. And pardon my language, damn it, that's all they need to know. Yeah, our team we were in the top 4 at the Klein Forest Invitational. Sure, there were only 4 schools that showed up. And one of our kids actually shouldn't have had their test graded because they didn't do the essay. But they don't need to know that. They just need to know the success. And t-shirts also breed success. Start making it where people want to have the shirt. Offer it to the staff. Because, in Melanie's case, she has 10 kids that show up. Yes, I'm maybe picking on you, Melanie. 10 kids that show up for district. Well, are those the only 10 kids that get shirts, and the other kids that don't have don't get a free shirt? Well, it was an hour a week. You couldn't give me an hour a week. I can't give you a shirt. Well, that makes them feel like, well, I can do that next year. Or kids start thinking, well, I like that shirt. That's a good looking shirt. Especially when the cool teacher wears it. So I have to have other teachers also wear it. Me wearing it doesn't sell the kids on it. You know, have the cool teachers on campus wearing the shirt. You know, because we love having more than just those 3 shirts to rotate for Spirit Day. You know, especially those teachers that are new to the campus, they love having a free shirt. It's just like in college, we like the free t-shirt. All right, moving on. All right, so, but Robert, my campus is small like yours. They're already in band and theater and take care of their siblings after school and they work. Well, thanks for asking about this. Oh, I figured y'all were gonna laugh at me for that. Okay, like we've already established in the chat, there's no magic formula. I like what Brandy just said about having all the 8th graders complete a form that listed the events and give them an option of, hey, I might be interested in that. Because now she has specific names for events and she can turn those over to the other coaches. I love that. You know, giving them a QR code that links to it. You know, that's one of the things I plan to do is we have 2 geography teachers. The other geography teacher, I'm going to have her as well require her students as the warm-up one of the first days of school, or maybe the Monday after, or the day after the first test, pop up that QR code and fill out a form. So I'm writing down that reminder for myself because I had that idea and didn't put it in here. So yes, the teacher takes notes just like the students do. But you know, finding a way to get the kids interested is difficult. So now that we're talking about over-involved students, because Dawn, this one's for you since you're the last one to mention it. Find out, you know, if you can get that dedicated class period, great. You know, it's not the be all end all, but as we know, if they're getting a grade for it, they're more likely to, well, A, they have time in class, and B, they're more likely to work on it outside class. A couple of years ago with that 3rd period class that we had, I had those students have to commit to either they wrote an essay for the Barbara Jordan or Latino history essay contest, or they had to do UIL academics. And the second that they heard the term test, they immediately jumped to do the Barbara Jordan essay contest. And they weren't, or, well, sorry, 4 Barbara Jordan, 5 Latino history. But, you know, they did the UIL essay contest. They didn't place, but it gave me something, something that I didn't have to write an extra lesson plan for. And B, it made them learn some of those research methods because my class was called Social Studies Research Methods. So they had an opportunity that they had to do some research. But those, yes, as Don just said, those students who do those different activities, they're the recruiters. They're your best recruiting that you can get. Meet them where they are. You know, if they work, I had a student that worked at Whataburger. So God help us, you know, he always had his break at 5:30. And his boss was fine with him, you know, keeping his break always at 5:30. We ordered our food. A couple times I bought for the other kids on the team just because I felt like it. And plus, you know, it's a nice enticement to give the kids some food. You know, and he took his break and we studied together for 30 minutes. But, you know, meet at a restaurant, meet at Starbucks. if you have one nearby. Meet somewhere until they kick you out, or until they tell you you can't come back anymore unless you order more. Double up on meetings. Have a morning session and an afternoon session. Yes, it means more time that you're having to, that you aren't getting to spend on grading and planning. But if you've got 2 kids that they can't meet after school and 4 kids that can't meet before school, you're still getting them. And, maybe right after school and then after a later practice. Something that I found success with was working out a schedule with 1-act play and band and debate and saying, hey, can you give me one day where you're starting at 2:45? Can you give me one day that y'all knock off at 4? And they loved that. They're like, well, I can tell all the kids, sorry, we're done at 4 o'clock on Thursdays. I'm getting grading and stuff done until 4 o'clock, and then the whole team is there from 4 to 5. And then the activity bus picked up kids at that time. Finding ways to figure out how can I get them there? How can I preferably get all the kids there at one time? And it makes the kids feel valued that, hey, I went to the 1-act play director. I went to the debate coach. I went to these coaches and we made a schedule so that you aren't overburdened. We remember what it was like to be a teenager. When teachers came to us and said they were doing things for us, even if they weren't entirely for us, we felt valued. We just didn't know that they were doing them for themselves too. Sponsors are getting better meetings because you're helping them come up with a schedule where they don't have to hear, well, I have to be at debate at 3 o'clock. And another person says, well, I'm not available till 3 because I have National Honor Society. And it gets them together where they feel empowered and they're getting more face time with each other. It's not just face time with you. All right, some final ideas on some little successes. Figure out where your district, pardon my terminology, and I swear I'm not insulting anybody. Find out what events your district sucks at. If there's an event that your district is weak at, go all in for that. I was running tab for my district's UIL meet. You can bet that I was making notes of where the scores weren't all that great. And thinking about, well, is that something I can coach? Can I talk to this teacher or that teacher and just say, hey, can you take kids during the advisory period and work with them on this, once a week, and then they're working on their own the rest of the week so that you can do stuff with your other students. Find those ways, because other than computer applications, these events will be here for a while. So, build up the program. If nobody in your district, in my district, we had, I want to say, out of the 5 events, I think we had 11 total entries, not entrants, entries in journalism between the 5 events. You can bet that I'm going to go hard on journalism events this coming year, even if I have to do them myself. So, find those places where, maybe, hey, we're the weak, our region seems to be weak in this event. That's a great opportunity to stop, just having kids make it to region, but we can now go to state. And obviously, once you make it to state, every region, every division, every classification is strong. As we've said, anyone can coach. I don't need to harp on that anymore. Create achievable goals. In Stephen's session on Monday. If your school hasn't broken 80 sweepstakes points in a decade, create a plan to do that. Or we're going to have an entry in every event. We're going to have a team in every event that has a team score. You don't have to go from nothing to winning the Lone Star Cup. It would be great, but that's what movies are about. We live in the real world. Let's see, I'm looking at what Stephanie just said. I like that. People chip in a few bucks and there's pizza. And you get all the teams together. Love that. All right, we are at, it is past 9:50. If you're going to, I think it's an accounting, was it a math calculator session at 10? I understand if you're leaving. I'm going to quickly talk about the limited resources. We talked about some of that at the very beginning, but I'm going to talk about that so we can wrap it up. So let's cultivate. Success tip number 1. Free scrimmages. Stealing a page from athletics. Scrimmage someone you don't compete against. We're a 6A school, but I'm right next to Region 3 in 6A. That's 8 districts worth of schools. There's 5A schools. There's a couple 4A schools, and they don't even have to be near you. Scrimmage somebody across the state. We created this online world. Use it. Set up a webcam on your Promethean or use your laptop. Pop it up. They're watching your kids, you're watching theirs as they test. Use old practice tests. That's awesome. 3 kids advanced in 2 events and then advanced to state. That is awesome. But free scrimmages, because even if it's you're getting some practice, a 5-year-old number sense test, well, that test is still valid. Or obviously in some of them like lit crit, social studies, current events, it entirely changes year to year. We know that. But you can, practice material is out there. Success tip number 2, in-person invitationals. Attend them. There are 2 sets of practice meets that the UIL sponsors. There's other practice material. Even if your kids fall on their faces, you still have practice material. You still have study material. Contact, if you say, well, we're going to go to this in-person invitational, talk to the contact person and see, hey, I coach math. Can you give me 5 free entries if I proctor the math test? Or whatever the deal that you can cut is. It saves you money because we all have limited resources. Find ways, because they want the good proctor, you want the price break, you want the good proctor too that knows the test. Offer a quid pro quo. Host your own invitational. The UIL will advertise it for you. They put out the list of who the contact person is, what date it is. They use that. Frame it to admin as a fundraiser. They might even absorb the custodial charges. You get now, and all of a sudden you've got money, and those t-shirts are free for the kids. Or that's the money that you use for materials for next year, or extra materials for this year. And the one that I'm most gonna be using this year. Yeah. Somebody, you usually have to proctor a test, if not be a judge for the test anyway, but offer to be, offer that in exchange for something. So, they want the money, but they also want to, if you're promising to bring 10 kids for current events, 5 more tests cost them 3 cents a paper, or okay, probably 30 cents a paper, but 5 more kids, it's nothing for them. But now they get a good profit. If they have to pay something for it, and you have the money, sell it to them purely at cost instead of if it's, you get told it's $6.50 instead of charge them $6 instead of the $6.50, instead of charging them, the flat, oh, well, the shirt's $10. And then the other $3.50 ends up in the kitty. But host a middle school invitational, especially if you can get those schools in your district. If you have a multi-school district, get those middle schools in your district to show up, because now you're getting to scout, you're getting to recruit, because they're seeing that, hey, they've got all those great looking t-shirts. They always have pizza in their hand. I want to have pizza in my hand all day on a Saturday. They're kids. We respect them, but remember that they are kids. Hit them on the things that they value. Success tip number 3, online practice tests. It can save you a whole lot of money because you don't travel. It's a one-time fee. You're not giving up your all or half of a Saturday. You can actually do the testing during the school day if you so desire. Or, do it after school, but now they're all of a sudden they don't have to be there from 8 until 11 for current events because they want to wait to see if they get an award. They show up for current events, they're done in 30, 40 minutes, and they go on to something else. Yeah, you also get to create a day of district experience for your kids, because you know what the test is like. The in-person invitational is great for that. They get 30, 40 kids in the room. They know what it's going to be like at district. They can also get a version of that in your classroom, because there's nothing like being there and having that test in front of you to know what it's going to be like to have the test in front of you at the end of March. Some of the more notable online ones: virtual challenge meets, flat fee for all events. It's one fee and you can do 2 events, or you can do all the events, same charge. And I talked with Chuck Thompson, because bye Miriam, have fun at the calculator session. I talked to him and I said, hey, can I have some kind of door prize, And he said, I'll do you one better. Anyone that says that they attended your session, $50 off. Just got to register by the end of July. And make sure you get the invoice paid ASAP, I'm sure. But if you contact him, and yeah, you can't give free benefits, but it can be something. Just like, the football players don't get to keep their jerseys. But Chuck Thompson virtual challenge meets, $50 off. Best of Texas. If you want to have that, if you want to do it on a per test basis, that might be a better option, because she charges $59.99 a test or an event, and you get all 3 of her practice tests. Well, if you're only going to field 1 or 2 or 3 teams, that might be the better option, because this is about stretching your dollar. Chuck's fee is 1 fee across all events, and you can do 1 event or you can do all his events. With Peggy's, with Best of Texas, it's basically $60 per event. At my old school, we were right at the threshold between which one would be better. And so we kept with Best of Texas, because we always had 4 to 6 sponsors that said, yeah, I'm in. So that was the cheaper option for us. All right, quickly, some crowdsourced stuff. Okay, yeah, and for Best of Texas, it's called Best of Texas Online Contests. I didn't want to explicitly advertise, so that's why I didn't put a link, but it's Virtual Challenge Meets and Best of Texas Online Contests. And they're both really good for practice, but there's nothing like having that test. I will say it flat out. There's nothing like having that test written by the state director. And that's what those invitational tests are. Right. Thank you, Melissa. There's nothing like knowing, okay, well, my kids are doing social studies, and now we see what the two tests that Andy Bates wrote were like. Or in current events, the two tests that Brad Wilson wrote. You know, once they start seeing the questions the way that they're being written by the state director, it's the same as giving the kids an old STAR test. You understand the framework for what the questions are going to look like. There's nothing quite like that. All right, so crowdsourced tips. Insist that the places you go for meets have that same standard that the state does. The example that the person gave was for ready writing. Make sure that they're looking for the same things that the people at the state test are going to be looking at. Yeah, I can imagine that, you know, with LD debate, well, I actually judged NSDA Nationals last week, and my RFDs, it felt good that a couple coaches actually reached out and said, okay, I found your name. Thank you for the feedback you gave my kids. It was different from the other feedback they've gotten. And I was tired of them getting the exact same feedback. Well, but make sure they're still getting that feedback that they're getting, you know, that they would get at state. Because, go ahead, Melanie.
UIL is amateur, right? But I shouldn't have kids, if I'm judging LD debate for UIL, because I'm the debate coach. If I'm judging LD debate for UIL, I should not have a kid walk in and ask me what my paradigm is, because that means that they're doing, NFL, they're doing something else. And it is so frustrating because you have all of these judges that are expecting our kids to know all of these other rules, and they're judging based on that.
Jared, come here, please.
Judging based on that, and it's not, and nobody's holding them accountable for it. And in one of my previous comments, I was saying, it's hard. It's hard for our kids to be constantly losing and to continue keeping a team. And that's how it has been with my debaters. It's difficult when I'm teaching them based on UIL rules, and it's difficult for them to constantly be up against judges that are not judging based on UIL rules, and nothing is happening about it, even at the district and state levels. Nothing is happening about it, and it's difficult. How do you keep morale up when that's happening?
Okay, hopefully that'll be the last time my lights go up. And I understand where you're coming from. My school that I teach at, I'm not the debate coach. He was next door to me for my first 2 years. Now they moved him to another place in the building. But he deals with that as well, because he struggles to get students to any of the meets prior to district, because a lot of them are like, oh, those are just practice. Oh, if you're doing the TFA circuit, there's a TFA state, there's NCFL, there's NSDA. Yeah, those are different circuits. And yet it's hard to, if you're just doing UIL, to compete against those kids who are spending 15 to 20 weekends debating. And they, where you've got your 4 LDers for your district, and you're going up against a school that they had to pare it down to 4 because they were only allowed 4, because they usually take 6 or 8 and half of the break at every tournament. It's really tough.
Right, and they have a debate class, and they have a
Right.
debating club, and they have all of these resources, and they have people, coming out of the woodwork to help them, and they have, how, and they come in with all of these, with all of this experience, but yet they also, I've had some that have come in debating the wrong, debating the incorrect topic, because they were debating based on, NFL or something. And I'm like, this is UIL. This is a different, game.
Thankfully, in my UIL district, I don't have that problem. There's no one that's debating on the TFA circuit. I'm in Houston. We've got so many entries and so many schools wanting to host tournaments that we literally have that, that TFA limits the Houston area to 2 tournaments a weekend. And so that's, over 100 LDers every weekend in the Houston area. And then there's also, and I'm drawing a blank on Huddle, the Houston Urban Debate League. Do they have the Urban Debate League in the Metroplex?
They might, but my kids are not going to be able to go to that.
Okay, well, I understand. But thankfully, the Urban Debate League, other than the time element being, basically this, well, it's half of what a regular tournament is. It's with the Urban Debate League, it's free. So, cost isn't an issue. And I'm so thankful for that there are sponsors that cover the costs where your expenses, you just got to get the kids down to the tournament, over to the tournament. And it gives them an opportunity to get more rounds, to hear the topic where they're getting to hear, if they're the ath, they're getting to hear someone else's ath while they're the neg and improve their case. Because it stinks when you're the debate version of those kids that are pulling out the golf clubs for the first time at the district golf tournament. And, that's what my UIL district's like. Some of those kids, when they show up for the district golf tournament, you have to tell them what, there's a coach telling them which club they need to use. Yeah, you use the one with the big club head to hit first with. And it's hard to, when, those kids are going up against someone who, dad's a club pro. It's hard when they haven't had the repetition. And it's painful. But, there are ways to do it. And if you think you can get kids that are committed to, even if it's not all in Houston, in the Houston Urban Debate League, I think it's 6 tournaments. Even if the kids can't get themselves to all, you can't get the kids to all 6. Try getting the kids to, one in the fall and one in the spring, because your only cost is the bus to get the kids there. And if you're lucky enough that even you can run even like a small middle school invitational, you've got money to invest in getting to go to another tournament, because there's plenty of tournaments. And yes, the topic changes. So they will, in September, they won't be debating the same thing that The UIL will be debating come the spring. But a good debater is a good debater. There's no magic topic that a kid that wouldn't make it that would make it to state with another event with another topic wouldn't make it through district without it. A good debater is a good debater. Other crowdsourced tips. Teachers who make students believe they can be successful show they care. The example that they gave was how, especially on the 1A to 4A level, you see a lot of the same teams every year at state because they know that A, that teacher cares and is going to work with them, and B, kids like being a part of something that's already winning. If you've got, I hate to speak ill of the school, but if you're the football coach at Northbrook, your football team gets made fun of. A friend of mine that actually went to Northbrook said that, it's not cool to be on the football team at Northbrook because they've never made the playoffs, ever. So for them, the cool thing is to be on the soccer team because the soccer team does make the playoffs. And so they know, well, I know that I'm going to get coached up in soccer, so why should I play receiver on the football team if I can just wait for the spring and play soccer? Find coaches that show they care, and it doesn't matter what they teach, they'll get those kids to be successful. I tried this out one year. I literally did not even crack open the book for social studies. And my kids went 1, 2, 3, 5 at district. I talked to them in general terms. I said, this is on y'all. I said, I'm going to try out the just caring and not drilling y'all on stuff. They did great. Last thing, there are a lot of UIL gurus out there that will workshop your kids. Yeah, Argyle, thank you. I couldn't remember the other school. Argyle and Lindale kick everyone's butt. But find someone that's successful at that event and see if they'll talk to your kids, even if it's not an event that you sponsor. If you sponsor the math team and you get in touch with someone for social studies, have them talk to your kids about what it takes. First time in this new UIL district, because when I was still in spring, we got moved into another UIL district with Aldine. I had kids that didn't know they had to write the essay the same day. And you can't win if you don't know the rules of the game. Just having a guru talk to them about how the test is, what's involved in the test, what to study, that can be a game changer. It really can. It can make a huge difference. And having that regular practice schedule. Don't make it, put it on you that you say, hey, we're going to practice every Thursday from 2:30 to 4. We're going to practice, or if your school starts late, we're going to practice from 7 to 8 every Wednesday, whatever the set schedule is. And don't have every practice be about the academics. Have some fun. Show up, and when they walk in your room, shoot them with a Nerf gun. If you have the dynamic that you can do that. Shoot them with a Nerf gun and tell them we're gonna have a Nerf war for the first 30 minutes. And have the Nerf gun sitting out and tell them we're gonna go around the building, and whoever gets the most hits gets some prize, or they get to pick when we meet next. But yeah, you are correct that sadly there are some judges that will judge kids down for that, and it shouldn't happen, but sadly it does happen. That's it. Enjoy your summer. Sorry, this went an hour and 18 minutes. So to me, that's 1.5. That's a 1.5. Remember, if you want to talk to Chuck Thompson at Virtual Challenge Meets, jump at that offer. I get a whole $0 commission on it. I highly recommend it. If you want to contact me, I put my contact information in it. And I will be glad to respond. Just put in there that, hey, we talked during the capital conference session. Glenda, does the chat save? Thank you, Erica.
Yes, it
Does
does.
the chat save?
Yes, it does.
Wonderful.